It is the crown jewel of the Pacific Northwest, whether nestled in a distant cloud bed or prominent in a postcard pose. Mount Rainier is the over-the-shoulder presence of our entire region, referred to simply by its first name, the mountain.
Oh, it's heaven, for sure. It's definitely, you know, a piece of heaven.
Known as Tacoma by the Indians, evil spirits were said to live in a lake of fire on its summit. With the arrival of the first white man, that Indian lore was ignored as the white man aimed to climb Rainier. In 1870, the son of Washington's first territorial governor, Hazard Stevens, was the first to reach the summit.
This is a very old scrapbook.
Since then, the lure of Rainier has drawn climbers again and again. Dr. Paul Gersman of Puyallup made his first summit of Rainier before he was 20, back in 1943.
We didn't have plastic back then, and not even tarps.
The only climbing gear available came from Army surplus, and only the rich had sleeping bags.
After World War II, there were some tarps available, but they didn't keep out any rain. They leaked like a sieve.
Pennants in Dr. Gersman's office bear witness to a lifetime of climbing, including Chimborazo, McKinley, and Everest. But it's nearby Rainier that shared his life like a family member. He's summited the mountain about 50 times, including 2 years ago at age 71. Why all this climbing?
I have no reasonable, rational answer for that one. It's a drive. You're compelled, and it's a passion.
I've already put your sleeping bag in here.
Okay.
And I got a 10 in the bottom. Okay, the lightest 10.
Jim Yoder is another one who's been drawn by the mountain's powerful presence. A climber for 30 years, he's been after a winter ascent never before accomplished. In 8 years, he's been turned back 3 times.
You know, shoot, I've, climbed Mount Rainier 39 times, and it seems like I've tried it 150 times. Yeah. Because of the weather.
On this February morning, the weather is perfect.
We skirt around to the right of it, and that's where I didn't like it last time we were up there. That's where I got scared, but it wasn't snow covered.
The aim is Sunset Ridge, one of only a few routes that is yet to be conquered under the cover of winter.
Throw it up on your knee.
And to top it off, 2 rookies are going along. Photographer Scott Wallace and me.
What do we figure we're carrying here, Jim? How much? Between 50 and 80 pounds?
Yeah.
It's really not that heavy. It's just not loaded very well.
And I'm sure I'm carrying the 80.
To climb up Rainier from this northwest side, you actually have to go down for the first 4 miles. Conditions couldn't be any better as there is no snow on the initial trail. But it hasn't made the walk any shorter. At our first night's camp, we've barely seen the snow that will be our week-long companion. For now, that's a warming thought.
Now, keep in mind, we did not go after this unprepared. In fact, Scott and I trained for 3 months in various areas trying to get prepared for this climb. In fact, we even tried to climb Mount St. Helens at one point and would turn back due to the weather. Tomorrow, we'll show you what we went through in our training and also inch us a little bit closer to the top of the mountain.
Perry, why hasn't this route up Sunset Ridge ever been climbed before?
That's one of the interesting things about this. A lot of people have asked me, you expect almost everything on the mountain to have been climbed before. The biggest keys here, ever since the West Side Road was washed out on Mount Rainier, is weather and time. It takes about 3 days for us to get to base camp at 9,000 feet for this. So you've got to have a lot of time during the winter to do this, and a lot of people don't have that. And then the weather has to be absolutely perfect. And like we mentioned before, Jim Yoder tried to do this 3 times before, couldn't do it. This time, it turned out absolutely perfect for us, so we were probably very, very spoiled.
All righty. Quite an adventure, Perry. We'll look forward to the rest of your stories. And if you don't mind, we'll start calling you Hazard Cooper in honor of the first young man to make it to the top. Thanks.
Not a bad day.
Good job, Perry. Thanks.
Back during the turn of the century, a winter ascent of Mount Rainier was pretty much considered to be impossible.
In fact, climbers couldn't get permits to climb the mountain in the winter, but now that has changed, and Perry Cooper is joining us with more of his special report, Struggle for the Summit.
You know, you had no climbing experience going into this adventure, so what gave you the confidence that you could make it to the top?
Well, we were surrounded by experienced climbers. That made it right off the bat there. Our team leader, Jim Yoder, has climbed over 30 years and has reached the summit of Rainier 39 times. And here, let's give you a look of what Sunset Ridge looks like. It took us 2 days to go from low camp all the way up into high camp, or 2 days to get into low camp, then up to high camp at 9,000 feet, and then we went up to the top of the ridge at Sunset Ridge there at just over 13,000 feet. And of course, Jim Yoder made sure that we were ready for every possible problem along the way.
Usually you don't never fall in a crevasse this deep. If you did do that, you guys are doing it wrong.
Comforting words for the amateurs.
Now you can lean back.
Training to climb the big rock of Rainier, we started on the relatively little Spire Rock in Tacoma. Pressicking, as it's called, is for the worst-case scenario if we fell into a crevasse. Actually, rock climbing used to be part of mountaineering before its recent pull as a sport of its own.
And when you get higher, you kind of breathe faster. But when you start breathing faster, what you do is you take one big deep breath and then you let it go out.
Dryland training on fairly steep foothills near Buckley prepped us for the hike up Rainier. We packed in 3 months of various training, covering packs and clothes.
The weather, the harsher the environment, it's exponential how important this stuff is.
With all the gloves, jackets, boots, and what's in our packs, we'll be outfitted with nearly $5,000 of gear each.
You notice I'm putting my poles in front of me to keep that.
The mode of transportation for Rainier's winter wonderland is snowshoes.
New stuff, what you kind of do is push down with your heels, and you can kind of weight the snowshoe, and you float a lot more.
A little experimentation showed us how deep a struggle this would be without snowshoes.
See, it's like here, I'm floating on top. You're up
Breaking trail in the virgin snow, we seem to disturb winter's white painting, turning the head of some rare wildlife.
If you just notice walking up here, there's not hardly any tracks around here. You know, we're the only ones up here. And when you're up on that mountainside, you know, at 14,000 feet, you know, you're totally by yourself.
Our route to the mountain is up the South Mowich River Basin, the same route the first white explorer used to hunt for medicinal herbs. Medicine would be a good thing for me at this point, as we're still a day's walk from the mountain's glaciers. My photographer and I are both beginning to feel the effects of shin bite from the consecutive 8 hours of climbing in plastic boots. Ice is forming along the rocks as the elevation gets higher, making for slippery footing. The crusty snow is another good sign for us, and we're able to ditch our snowshoes, lightening our packs and making the walk easier. Just getting there is the main deterrent to climbers reaching Sunset Ridge.
Sunset Ridge only gets climbed a couple times a year. And like last year, I think it only got climbed once. The year before that, not even at all.
It is 5 o'clock on the evening of day 2. We're at our first mountain camp at about 6,500 feet on the mountain. As you look down the valley, you can see the Mowich River Valley in which we came up today. We traveled about 3 miles, didn't get as far as we'd hoped, and we will have to go to our high camp at 9,700 feet tomorrow. Our biggest worry now is what ends nearly 2/3 of attempts at Rainier's summit, the weather.
We don't have any wind here, but up there in base camp, it's windy because you can see the clouds moving around like that.
We could wait another day or two and still not get a shot at the goal.
Or if you don't make it, you just don't get very upset and just say, I got to come back.
Now, we mentioned before how winter ascents were not even permitted in the early years of climbing Rainier. The first winter ascent didn't occur until 1922, that over 50 years after the first summit of the mountain. And Sunset Ridge was one of the last routes to be climbed in the summer. It wasn't scaled until 1938.
Now, you spent 6 days on the mountain. You must have seen some just incredible scenery. I mean, we saw that was a black fox.
That was a black fox that was actually turning colors because of the winter.
Beautiful.
And also out on the mountain, something I saw that I didn't even realize existed, but we saw the shadow of Mount Rainier, which as the sun rises from the east and gets over everything in the Cascades except the mountain. When there's clouds over the Olympics, you can see in the clouds in the Olympics the point of Mount Rainier's shadow in those clouds. That's something I had never even heard of before, and I'm a native here, so that was beautiful.
Yeah, spectacular. Wow. Well, we're proud of you for doing it, too. We'll look forward to your report tomorrow.
You bet. And we got some great pictures as well, too, from Modular Video Systems that have helped us out super with the camera that brought us up there. And we're going to see some excellent photos tomorrow in our third part.
All right. Look forward to that. Thanks, Perry.
Weather is always a key factor when it comes to climbing Mount Rainier, especially for climbers attempting a winter ascent.
And nobody knows that better than Perry Cooper. He is here today with the final part of his series, Struggle for the Summit, and shows us his final push for the top.
Boy, struggle is a word that I was thinking was probably an underestimation when I was sitting there on those slopes. In our quest for the first ever winter ascent of Sunset Ridge, I found we were following actually in the footsteps of another media type. During the first ever winter ascent of any kind on Rainier back in 1922, a news photographer lugged his 60-pound camera with him. His name was Charles Perryman. Today we make our final push to match his feat.
Okay, everybody, let's go!
Like right now, avalanche is really low. It could slab, like they said, slab. Not with that. There ain't that much snow on it. If it had more weight on it, we'd slab.
Weather concerns eased as we began day 3 on the mountain, although the top was still hiding in a cloud.
I don't think we've got enough snow here, Jim, and the crust is only a couple inches.
Working in 2 groups, we started the traverse to high camp from 5,000 to 9,000 feet. Minimizing the steeper angles of the slopes, our team leaders break trail in a switchback pattern. Crampons are now 24 of our closest sharp-edged friends, the spikes burying their grip into the ever-steepening mountain. The ice axe repeats in the same manner as one coordinated balancing act. It makes a numbing monotony of thousands of steps. For me, I don't even really like to look ahead much. I find if I concentrate on the steps, the task does not seem so daunting.
I'll count to 100 before I look up. Just to get, and I don't always make that, so sometimes I get to like 30 and oh, okay, 1, 2.
We make high camp under the watchful eye of Rainier's summit, getting ready for a short night before attacking the ridge.
Every time you go up, I get a natural high.
This is, I think, being alive. Because you're with the elements and you're out pretty much alone and you're left to your own devices for your own survival. You just don't go to the 7-Eleven up here.
At 9,000 feet, we are higher than Mount St. Helens, and the kaleidoscope of scenery is mesmerizing. As the moon rides the night into darkness, we rustle from our tents at 2 a.m. This is where our try at the summit starts, in the black, with miners' headlamps. Obscured on the peak, we'll head west of base camp, then virtually straight up for over 4,000 feet. It's 5:30 in the morning now, 3.5 hours into walking up in the middle of the dark. Went up once, one route, wrong way. We're gonna have to backtrack and go off to the opposite side. A touch of morning light turns the snow blue as we get our first look at what we've climbed up in the dark. The pink of the sunrise is only briefly admired. 40 and 45 degree slopes are now the norm, not the exception. It's pretty damn steep right here. Boy, some of those holes collapse too on us. Our pace intensifies in order to make the ridge and get back down before dark. That means fewer rests.
It's okay to be panting here, right? Okay.
It will take us 10.5 hours, seemingly racing the sun to each of our summits.
Here we are at our final push to the top of the mountain. This is the top end of Sunset Ridge. We will go around this corner and get to the very top of Mount Rainier. Already today we've gone about 4,000 feet, right now at the 12,000 foot level.
Our steps are more deliberate as the altitude sucks out more oxygen. Walking sideways, the crampons must pick into tougher, icier sections.
Shoot.
At 1 in the afternoon, we take the final steps to the top of Sunset Ridge, our goal accomplished. But the feeling is exhaustion.
I don't know if it's called beating the mountain or not, but I feel dead.
We got the best conditions I've ever seen for Mount Rainier.
I've had a lot of hobbies in my life, and mountaineering seems to be a very fulfilling one.
The challenge, just pushing yourself, seeing how far you can push yourself, for one, and just seeing, you know, just do it because it's there.
Now, we didn't make the true summit to the mountain, which is on the far south side, but we did reach the top of Sunset Ridge, which had never been done before in the winter. An icy face made the summit too dangerous, and we were running out of daylight at that point since it was another 4 hours to get back down. The final part to that summit is actually considered another route.
Wow. That was some steep terrain that you tackled in the last
Looking
leg
back on that on Sky High, it's pretty amazing to see that it was that steep as well, too. In fact, I wanted to point out, too, as well, just in talking about whether or not I had ever thought about this, I went back, and when I was in 6th grade, I made a goal list of things I wanted to do in my life. And if you can believe this, number 4 on here is climb the summit of Mount Rainier. Of course, I was not in spelling class at that time, but one of my goals I can finally check off from a long time ago. But, you know, that also had starting for the Mariners on it, too.
Would you do it again?
It didn't, you know, probably not. I think it's it was a great experience, but it was so difficult. At least not that route. I don't think I would ever do that difficult a route again. But it's something to remember. And I also want to thank my photographer, Scott Wallace, who did a great job in putting all this together and shooting it. Kevin Glantz, who helped us edit it, and all the people in Sky Eye, the photographers and pilots who helped us out with that. And we had several different shooters on this, and it's really turned out great for us.
Spectacular pictures, too.
Thank
We're proud of you.
Appreciate
Good job.
it. Thanks.
Thank you, Perry.